Hey gang, Scott Davenport here. In this video, we'll take a look at tinting and doing a little color treatment to a sky to give it more richness, just to make it a little fuller. In this case, some clouds, making it a slightly bit moodier. It was a series of adjustments using our gradient tools, so our radials and our graduated filters. And let me just dive in here and show you what's going on. Now, this is my final image. It's actually a pano stitch of about 4 or 5 panels. I really played up like the cool warm going on in the sky. You've got the darker, moodier clouds on the right-hand side playing against the warmer clouds on the left. And let me just run through these snapshots I've taken to show you quickly the before and after. So with nothing treated in the sky, cooled down the right, warmed up the left, added a little bit of a tweak to the warmth, and then did some fine-tuning in the foreground to even out the lighting. So I want to walk through what these various steps did. And as I mentioned, they use the graduated tools, so the gradients and the radial filters. And in retrospect, having done this completely now, I really could have just done things with the graduated filters. But let me walk through the different steps. So let's go back to, we have no sky treatment. I want to do something to cool the right-hand side. So cooling the right-hand side, what did we do there? Graduated filter, and let me find the right pin. I believe it's this one. Nope, that's the wrong one. There it is. There's my big graduated filter. Now notice only the sky is being affected in those dark clouds. That is courtesy of the luminance range mask. See, the range has been tightened up, so I'm not affecting the highlights. And then I used the brush in the erase mode and took away everything from the foreground. So in the end, we have just this treatment up in the sky. And this, I want to point out, that was kind of where I made my mistake, and I had to go back and clean it up afterward. I should have left some of that tinting going on here in the foreground. That leads me to, what did I do with that sky? You can see a little bit of coolness, a little bit of underexposure, and for effect, added some texture and some clarity just to punch up those clouds a little bit. Now moving on to the left-hand side, click on the warm left, we see that warmth pop up. That I tried with a radial filter, and I'll pick that one right there. I'll hover for a moment. Once again, we're using some range masking, but this time treating the highlights. And you can see the temperature and the tint have been shifted a little bit, and I actually reduced clarity quite a bit to really give that a soft, warm feel. Next stage was tweaking that warmth. So it's the same radial, but notice now I've added a tiny bit of a color tint to it. So that little color swatch has been given a very low amount of orange, just to give it a hint of extra color. So I'll show you that one more time here, before that tweak and after. The next thing was fixing up the foreground. So as I click on this last snapshot here, watch the foreground. On the left-hand side, we see it warm up a little bit. On the right-hand side, we see it cool down. I went back and revisited those same radials and gradients and painted in the areas that I'd overlooked before. So let me pick on the gradient. I'll go back to the gradient here. And that's the pin. If I hover there now, you'll see some hand-painted areas down in the lower right corner. And I'm still leveraging that luminance mask. So the luminance range is still pretty tight, and it's protecting the upper highlights there. At a moderate opacity brush, and we go into our brush tool with the gradient, and something like here, I've got a low flow, and the feather's nice and soft, density's low, so I could just sweep in a few times to just add some of that coolness back in. And why is that important? Because it makes natural sense. If this sky is kind of dark, well then this area should be kind of dark and cool. And the same token on the left-hand side. This is nice and warm. There should be a hint of that warmth being reflected down to the land. So before changing those foregrounds, and then after, it just has a little bit more of a natural feel. This is what I would expect to see if I had this exact kind of lighting out on the scene. As far as this final one, this was just me cleaning up the foreground removing some of the spaces between the trees and seeing little bits of buildings down there, just so that the eyes went right up to the sky. So that was the sequence of events, and I did this in Lightroom. You can do this in any tool that has your graduated filters and has some level of illuminance control. So on one you can do this, no problem. Photoshop, of course. The technique is really just playing that warm, cool, and treating different segments of the photo as you need to. Less is more in these things, little tweaks here and there, but they add up to something nice. Hope you found the video interesting. Got questions? Go ahead and drop them below. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Have fun.